Good morning, Year 8. Thank you once again for engaging with our online lessons. If you could please send me that message on Show My Homework, then I can mark you down on the register and we can give some reward points out for accessing the lessons. Today's lesson is going to be partly assessed with some self-marking and partly assessed with a My Maths activity at the end called reverse percentages. It is already set, but if you can't find it on your homework feed, then the name's there for you to search. I am in school today, so please send any help messages to red@theroyal.school. You might need to be a little bit patient again as I'm into the key workers. And then if you could submit work via Show My Homework, and again, please do make sure that any work is self-marked so that I can give you some more directed feedback on anything you might need a hand with. So today's lesson is on reverse percentages. Developing students are going to be able to use multipliers for percentage increase or decrease. We've talked about those for a few lessons now. Secure students are going to be able to calculate a reverse percentage to find an original amount, and then excelling students are going to be able to use reverse percentages to calculate an original amount after compound interest or repeated percentage change, so the reverse of last lesson. So onto our starter activity. So I've got a code breaker here for you, where if you can answer the questions in the boxes below them, and then you can find on the little code breaker at the top a letter that's associated with that answer, and you will find the result to the horrible joke of what I thought about the documentary I watched on shipbuilding, and I do apologise in advance for the appalling jokes here. You can, if you've got room, just do this from the video, though I have attached this starter activity on to Show My Homework if you need to have a look or want to print one out. So if you'd like to pause the video until we've had to get the starter, and onto the answers. So answers as follows. The answer to the question of what I thought about the documentary I watched on shipbuilding was that I thought it was riveting. So terrible, terrible joke there. I apologise for that in the morning. Moving on then. Reverse percentages then. So as the name might suggest, this is going backwards, and the percentage change has already occurred in these questions. We've got to be really careful with them. So our example here. I bought a phone in the sale and the phone had 10% off. I paid £90. Now you might be aware here that in our usual questions we might be told things about sales. This is really common use of percentages, but we have to work out what the sale price is. Now if the phone's already in the sale and this person paid £90, that percentage decrease has already occurred. You've got to be really careful with these questions. It's really tempting to say, oh, let's just find 10% of this 90 and add it back on. That's not going to work here. Remember, percentages are in proportion. So 10% of the original price, which was what was removed, is not the same as 10% of the new price. So we can't just find 10% of this and add it back on. So you need a different way of working out. It'd be definitely worth writing down one of the examples for this so that you can get the calculations for yourself more easily in the upcoming questions. So how much was the cost of the phone originally? Well, we need to have a think about what process would have happened, and we're going to do that using these multipliers that we spoke about in the last couple of lessons. So there was a price before the discount. This price had 10% removed from it. So if you think about our previous lessons work on percentage change, if you remove 10%, you're left with 90%. So then it was multiplied by 0.9, that multiplied for 90%. And that gets us to this price after the discount, which we know is £90. So actually we're going to work this in reverse. We know the price after the discount, so to work backwards towards our price before, we need to do the opposite. We actually need to divide by what we've been calling the multiplier. So divide our price after the discount by 0.9, and that will get us back to our original price, hence the working in reverse. 90 divided by 0.9 is £100. And let's just double check this with a little bit of a mental calculation. 10% of 100 is 10, and if you remove that from 100 you'd end up with 90. So yes, this is the price that we should have. So you need to consider this calculation that occurred to begin with and then reverse it, is the process that we're going to go through. Another example then. I bought a top in a sale and this top had 20% off. I paid £20. What was the cost of the top originally? So let's have a look at this in the same way. At some point there was an original price, which we don't know yet, and then that price was multiplied by something to get our new price. Let's have a look at the percentage that we got here then. So this was 20% off in this sale, and as we've seen before then, 20% off an original amount would leave you with 80% of it, and therefore the multiplier would be 0.8. So our price before the discount, the original price, was multiplied by 0.8 to get the sale price of £20. So we need to work that in reverse, and we're going to do our price after discount of £20 divided by 0.8, and that's going to get us back to our original price before the discount. So 20 divided by 0.8 is going to give us £25. So this is our reverse percentages. You must decide what the multiplier was in the original calculation so that you can reverse it. Do not go down that and fall into that trap of finding 20% of your original amount here, 20% of the sale price, and then trying to add that back on. It will not give you the same answer. So final example then, I put some money in the bank. The bank gave me 15% interest per year. After 1 year I had £230. How much did I put in my bank originally? So in this we have the same sort of process. We had a price before the discount, or in this case we can use the same boxes, but this is going to be our original investment. And then this was multiplied by something. Now this bank's going to give 15% interest per year, which is an incredibly high amount of interest actually. I don't think you'd see that in real life. So if you increase something by 15%, then you're going to get 115% at the end of it. So the multiplier for that's going to be 1.15. So this original amount that went into the bank has been times by 1.15 to get our end amount in the bank. It's not really a price after a discount here, but we're going to use the same box. This is going to be our interest or bank account afterwards. So we're going to work this in reverse then. We now need to divide by 1.15. So our new amount in the bank, £230, divided by 1.15 gets us our original amount in the bank, which was £200. Now, our excelling students, as our learning objective here, might be able to reverse percentages after compound interest, so after more than one change in this. So the only difference that would happen here is that perhaps if we knew that the money had been in the bank for 2 years, what we'd be doing is we'd have multiplied originally by 1.15 squared for the 2 years. Remember last lesson's work, and so we'd divide by 1.15 squared. And again, if this was 5 years, we'd have been multiplying by 1.15 to the power of 5. And then obviously when we're reversing it, we'd divide our new amount in the bank by 1.15 to the power of 5 if it was 5 years. So you can change that according to your compound interest calculations. I've got 3 questions then for you to determine your confidence with this topic before we move on. So I'm going to read them all out first, and I'll give you some pause time, and then we can run through the answers. So question 1, £300 increased by 200% is £600. Is that true or false? Number 2 here, if I keep my money in the bank and the bank gives me 10% interest each year, if I invest £100 in the bank, after 3 years I would have £130. Is that true or false? And number 3, I kept some money in the bank and the bank gave me 3% interest per year. After 2 years I had £212.18. So how much money did I put in originally? So if you'd like to pause the video until you've had a chance to think about these, and then we can run through some of the answers. So answers then. The first question, this is false. 300 increased by 200% is 600. That's going to be false. If you increase something by 200%, you'd actually have 300% of the original amount, the original and twice the amount on that. So we'd actually have 900 in that case. Question 2, if you keep your money in the bank and the bank gives you 10% interest per year, if you invest £100 in the bank and after 3 years you'd have 130, with our compound interest that would be false. If it was the simple interest, then at 10% per year, yeah, we'd have £10 a year, so we'd have 130. That's not the way these banks work. We'd need to do 100 times by 1.03 to the power of 3, and that £10 extra we make in the first year, they'd then find interest on that as well, so it'd be slightly more. And then the last question, I kept some money in the bank, and the bank gave me 3% interest each year, and after 2 years I had £212.18. How much did I put in originally? Well, for a 3% increase, you'd end up with 103%, so that's a multiplier of 1.03. So we'd need to take our new amount, 212.18, and then we can divide it by 1.03 squared, or divide it by 1.03 twice. And that will give us £200 for the original amount for those. So decide how confident you feel with this topic then. We can choose red, amber or green for our first activity. Remember, there's a My Maths one later as well, but this is our self-assessed activity, and then we're going to complete the corresponding activity that's attached on Show My Homework. Remember, red has lots of support, amber has a few hints, and green leaves you to your own devices if you're feeling really confident with these. So pause the video please until you're ready to go through the answers to those questions, and again please do self-mark them so that I can see which ones you might have had a problem with, and I can give you some directed feedback on that. So on to answers. So tick or cross those questions. Again, if you've got any problems with those questions, then please let me know which one and get in touch with me at red@theroyal.school, and I'll endeavour to help you as quickly as possible. So thank you for engaging with today's online lesson. If you haven't already sent me that message on Show My Homework, then please do so. And don't forget, there is also the My Maths activity of reverse percentages to complete as well. As we said before, help emails to red@theroyal.school. As I said, I am in school today, so you might need to be a little bit patient with answers. And then if you can submit your work once it's marked to Show My Homework, please. Thank you very much. I'll speak to you next week.